The first emperor of Japan was a guy named Jimmu. He conquered the Japanese islands and brought everyone under the same banner, like an Aegon the Conqueror, but without the incest, sadly. Being the legendary first emperor, descendant of the sun goddess, and part of the founding myth of Japan, you'd expect him to go down in history as some genius general nuking enemies dead with sun rays. But he wasn't that. His conquest of Japan was long and hard, and he paid dearly for it in blood, mostly the blood of his family. So why was Jimmu's legend written this way, to give him so many hardships? There may be an answer, and it wasn't just because it made for a better story. We'll talk about it afterwards. Two things before we begin the journey. One, Emperor Jimmu was a real figure, real mythical. He didn't exist. Two, Jimmu was the name given to him long after he died. His actual name was Kamuyamato Iwarebiko. We'll just call him Jimmu to make it simple and much less annoying. Jimmu was born in 711 or 721 BC, depending on which books you read. He was born the fourth child to a daughter of a sea god. Go up his family tree, and you can trace a line all the way back to the sun goddess Amaterasu, the main god in Japanese mythology. In the mythical timeline, Jimmu's birth was when the world passed from the age of the gods to the age of heroes. Jimmu was smart and strong, so at the age of 15, they made him heir to the throne. Luckily, his three elder brothers were not the types to be mad that they were passed over, which is how you know this is a mythical story. He ascended the throne in 660 BC. In his 40s or 50s, married and with kids, he gathered his brothers and children and announced that he had ambitions. He explained that his heavenly great-grandfather, Ninigi, descended from heaven to bring order to a chaotic world. That was over 1,792,470 years ago, he counted. Since then, his ancestors have brought glory and happiness to Kyushu, the place where they lived. It broke his heart that this peace and prosperity did not exist anywhere else. Other places had their own lords and chiefs that fought and killed each other. It was sad to hear. If only he could bring his benevolent rule to these other places after he fought and killed them. Emperor Jimmu had heard from a chatty ancient god of the sea that in the east lay a fair land with blue mountains on all sides. Jimmu believed it was the center of the world and the perfect place to carry out the heavenly task to bring order to the earth. And so, in 667 BC, Jimmu led an imperial naval force with his brothers on an expedition to the east. Almost immediately, they ran into a problem. They had no idea where they were going. Luckily, they came across a man riding on a tortoise, fishing, and flapping his arms like he had wings. That flapping is very weird, but I'll explain it at the end of the story. He offered to guide them, so they stretched out a pole and hoisted him up and promoted him from fisherman to navigator. They stopped at a few places until they entered the land of Kibi, where they spent 3 years preparing for the invasion. Jimmu wanted to subdue the entire central region in one fell swoop. Sadly, that wouldn't be the case. In 663 BC, the huge imperial navy set off east and reached the province of Kawachi, then marched their forces towards Yamato, the center of the world. They ran into trouble again, much more serious trouble this time. A local chieftain, the Prince of Nagasume, heard there were invaders and did what local chieftains did best. He met the imperial army in battle. In the chaos, one of Jimmu's brothers, Itsuse no Mikoto, was hit by a random arrow to the elbow, which ended his adventuring days. Emperor Jimmu was confused that things were not going well. This was not how heavenly tasks were supposed to go, and he suddenly realized why. He was a descendant of the sun goddess, but he had been attacking the enemy facing the sun. That was contrary to the way of heaven and to the way of intelligence. So he ordered a retreat so they could fight again another time with the sun at their backs. Jimmu performed some rituals to heaven. They decided to sail away from the dreaded Prince of Nagasune and land elsewhere. Jimmu's wounded brother kept getting worse. He complained about how annoying it was that he should die of a wound inflicted by lowly slaves. Itsuse no Mikoto died a bit later on and was buried at Mount Kama nearby, and that was only the first of Jimmu's brothers to die. They continued on with heavy hearts, but in the sea they were slapped with a violent wind. Inahi no Mikoto, one of Jimmu's other brothers, got frustrated. Here he was, descended from gods, born to a goddess of the sea, and yet the sea is harassing them endlessly. So he drew his sword, a man threatening the weather, and jumped into the waters, ending his life. Though he did eventually transform into the god Sahimochi, the blade holder, he was no longer with the expedition. Jimmu's last brother, Mikieri no Mikoto, also got frustrated. Even though they were running low on brothers, he jumped to the same conclusion, disappearing into the waves. Just like that, Emperor Jimmu was left alone with his son as his only family. Having lost all 3 brothers, Jimmu must have realized this expedition would ask more of him than he expected. But he was a man of conviction, and the heavenly task must be carried out. He ordered the Imperial Navy to move onwards. They arrived at Nishiki Bay and killed a troublesome chieftain there. Emperor Jimmu wasn't playing around now. The local gods there were not happy with the foreign invasion, so they spewed forth a poisonous gas that made everyone sick and tired. Eventually, they all went to sleep, the entire imperial army. It looked like this was the end of the journey. But it was then that the sun goddess Amaterasu lent a helping hand. A local man had a dream that the goddess sensed trouble and ordered the god of thunder to help. The god of thunder, Takemikazuchi, said he could send down his sword. He didn't have to go himself. Even the sun goddess can't find good employees these days. The sword was named Futsu no Mitama no Tsurugi, or the divine spirit sword that cuts with the sound futsu. Something like that. There is some debate, but futsu probably meant a cutting sound. In the dream, Amaterasu turned to the local man and said that a sword would appear in his storehouse. He should take it to Emperor Jimmu. The man woke up and, sure enough, found the sword in his storehouse. He could tell it was a magical sword because it was standing straight up, with the blade pointing skyward. He took it to Emperor Jimmu, who just woke up, and all the troops recovered from the poison gas. Emperor Jimmu wanted to march on, but the mountains had no road to cross. So Amaterasu intervened again. In the emperor's dream, she told him she would send Yatagarasu to guide him. Yatagarasu was likely the Chinese Yangwu, or the sun crow. According to Chinese mythology, it's a red crow with 3 legs that lives on the sun. When the giant crow came the next morning, Emperor Jimmu was super excited and grew even more confident in the cause because his divine ancestor was helping him. The crow led them to the district of Uda. Emperor Jimmu sent the crow to summon the 2 chiefs of Uda, Ukeshi the elder and Ukeshi the younger. However, only the younger brother showed up, and Ukeshi the younger told the emperor a deadly secret. He said his brother, Ukeshi the elder, shot an arrow at the crow to scare it away, and was planning to invite the emperor to a banquet, a red banquet. Ukeshi the younger proved himself a loyal servant to Jimmu and a terrible brother to his brother. Jimmu's men killed Ukeshi the elder with his own trap, then cut off his head, and it was said the amount of blood reached above everyone's ankles. Ukeshi the younger grieved the death of his brother by holding a fun feast of meat and sake. The soldiers sang a lovely song. Luckily, we have a recording of that song. In the high castle of Uda, I set a snare for a woodcock, and waited, but no woodcock came. A valiant whale came to it. Imperial soldiers were definitely soldiers, not songwriters. But the song's meaning was clear. Ukeshi the elder set a trap for a woodcock. Little did he know, instead of a harmless woodcock, a whale came instead. The whale here is Emperor Jimmu. Back then it was meant as a compliment. The story is not finished. Don't put your sword away yet. I just want to say a few things. The Japanese founding myths come from 2 ancient books, the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, and sometimes they differed or contradicted each other. Today's story mostly follows the Nihon Shoki version, but let's talk about some of the differences. Remember when they met that earthly god on a tortoise? That's from the Kojiki. In the Nihon Shoki, it was just a boring fisherman they met. He wasn't even on a tortoise or anything. The Kojiki version says he's an earthly god who's riding on a tortoise's back, fishing and flapping his wings. Now the word wings is what people argue about. What, the man has wings? So the discussion among academic folklore nerds is that the word wings could mean one of 3 things. 1, it could be literal. It could mean actual wings. So maybe he was some bird god that looked like a giant bird with actual wings. 2, it could mean the way he was using his arms looked like he had wings. Could be he was a bird god, but in human form. Maybe he was flapping his arms because for a moment he forgot he had arms instead of wings. Or he was waving to the army like he had wings. 3. The word wing may just mean sail, like he had a sail on a tortoise to steer. Kinda weird, but what do you think it means? That part where the local gods farted out a poisonous gas to make the imperial army sleep? In the Kojiki, instead of poison gas, a large bear appeared and disappeared. It must have cast a sleep spell on the army. Now, why in this founding myth of Japan, where they established the first emperor, did the emperor go through so many hardships? I don't know if there is one correct answer, but I think the main reason is that the story isn't trying to prove the first emperor was the strongest guy alive. It's trying to provide legitimacy to the imperial line. They were selling the idea that Japanese emperors were the rightful emperors of Japan. There were several things in the story designed to make the conquest legitimate. For example, Amaterasu helps Jimmu throughout the story, so not only was he a descendant of the sun goddess, she approved of his conquest. Emperor Jimmu's retreat from the Prince of Nagasune was also about legitimacy. The reason he lost was because he fought facing the sun. They were fighting against the sun. That was contrary to the way of heaven, so Emperor Jimmu had to retreat and perform some rituals to heaven. A ruler is supposed to do things the right way, to act in accordance with heaven. There's also some discussion that Jimmu's conquest may have been based on actual ancient events, where a group of people did migrate east to Yamato. Jimmu's story is nowhere near done. We're going to continue it in a later video. Click here to see that, if it exists. I have some new members on YouTube and Patreon today. The Notorious Life, Notorious, Jacqueline Kemp, Mary Arnold Nelson, Justin Wang, Patricia Barnes, Ms. Karya, Hakuna Katana, and Philip Bushman. Thanks so much, you guys. Alright, I love you, and spread the knowledge.